creepy corner stories.
Tonight starts with something small enough to fit inside a sandwich and ends with a black van sitting outside a bedroom window after somebody learned where a whole town's food really comes from. Then we head to a rain-soaked farm where a dog bought off the dark web is trained for threats that aren't supposed to exist. If you like your horror slow, rainy, and personal, leave a like, subscribe, and if you want the deeper files and ad-free drops, join us on Patreon. Let's get into it. I found on the dark web how all of our food in our hometown is supplied, and I'm preparing a nasty revenge. I was not even planning to post tonight. I had school the next morning, 3 missed calls from my mum, sitting on silent, and one of those headaches you get from staring at your phone too long in a dark room. Rain was tapping against my window, hard enough to sound like someone flicking pebbles at the glass, and I was halfway through an iced coffee. I definitely should not have been drinking that late. I kept telling myself I would close TikTok, answer people back, and actually sleep. But then I started thinking about this again, and every time I do, I get that same tight feeling in my chest, like I'm right back there. So I figured I'd just sit down and tell it the way it happened before I'd lose my nerve. I'm not using real names in this story, obviously. The only name I'm giving is Jason, and that's not his real name either. This started in the most stupidly normal way possible. That's probably the part that bothers me the most now. Nothing about that day felt important. Nothing felt like the kind of day that splits your life into before and after. It was a Thursday, I'm pretty sure, and it had been one of those gray afternoons where everything in town looked kind of dead. Our town isn't famous for anything. We've got the usual stuff: a McDonald's by the highway exit, a Starbucks inside the Target 20 minutes out, 2 gas stations across from each other for no reason, a strip mall with 1 empty store that's been empty my whole life, and a bunch of neighborhoods where everybody somehow knows everybody's business. I'm the kind of place where people say it's safe because nothing ever happens here. I had stayed late after school because I was supposed to be helping with a history project, but really, I was just killing time and messing around on my phone. By the time I got home, my mom was still at work and my stepdad was out doing some overnight delivery thing, so the house was empty. I remember dropping my backpack by the couch, kicking off 1 shoe but not the other, and going straight to the fridge, like an animal. There wasn't much in there, besides some soda, leftover Chinese takeout, and this plastic-wrapped tray of sliced roast beef from a local deli brand everybody in town buys. I don't want to say the actual brand name, but if you've ever lived in a small town, you know the type. Local logo, family-owned vibe, ads on Facebook, it sponsors Little League games. Everybody trusts it because it's from here. I made the saddest sandwich on earth. White bread, mustard, meat, no effort. I was standing at the kitchen counter, scrolling Instagram with one hand and eating with the other, half paying attention to a reel, when I bit into something that didn't feel right. At first, I thought it was plastic from the packaging. I pulled the bite away from my mouth and just stared at it for a second because my brain didn't really process it. Then I saw it. Hair. Not a tiny little fiber. Not dog hair stuck to the bread or something. I'm talking an actual long strand, dark, caught in the folded meat like it had been pressed in there. When I pulled on it, more came out. Not a lot, but enough that my stomach dropped instantly. I just stood there frozen, holding this half-eaten sandwich in one hand and this strand of hair in the other, with my phone screen still playing some dumb video I wasn't hearing anymore. I wish I could say I reacted in some smart way, but I didn't. I gagged, like immediately. I dropped the sandwich into the sink and turned on the faucet, like that would somehow make the whole thing less real. Then I kept looking at the package on the counter, like maybe I had imagined it. I opened it fully. There was another strand inside. That's when I took pictures. I took a bunch, actually. Close-up shots with flash. One of the hair stuck in the meat. One of the package label. One of the expiration date. One video too, because I knew if I told anyone, they'd act like I was exaggerating. I even put the strand against a paper towel, so it would show up better. Then I did what any normal teenage idiot does when something disgusting happens. I called Jason. He answered on the third ring and immediately said, "Why are you calling me like you just saw a ghost?" I said, "Because I found hair in my food." He laughed, like full-on laughed, and said, "Okay, welcome to Earth." "No," I said, "not like one hair. Dude, you need to FaceTime me right now." So he did. The second I showed him the package, his face changed. Jason jokes about everything. That's just how he is. But he got quiet fast. "That's actually nasty," he said. "Wait, hold on, pull it out again." "I already did." "No, the one's still in there." I remember angling the phone down over the counter while he kept saying, Bro, stop, zoom in, like he was narrating some crime documentary. When I used a fork to lift the meat, he stopped talking for a second. "That's not random," he said. "What do you mean?" "I mean that's in there." I hated that he said it like that, because it was exactly what I was already thinking. Not on there, in there. There's a difference, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. For the next 20 minutes, we acted like complete fake detectives, but not in a funny way anymore. More in that weird teenage way, where you're trying to make something gross seem less gross by treating it like a game. We were comparing the label, checking the batch number, Googling if anyone else had complained. I posted nothing. He posted nothing. We kept it between us, because honestly, it felt too weird to throw online right away. Jason told me to check the rest of the fridge. Same brand, same deli line. Turkey, ham, roast beef. My mom bought it all the time because it was cheap and better than the Walmart stuff. I checked another unopened pack. At first it looked fine. Then I saw something caught near the seal. Not just hair this time. Something that looked like a tiny, dark thread. I didn't even want to touch it. I just backed away from the counter and got that cold all-over feeling people talk about when they know something's wrong before they know why. Jason must have seen my face because he stopped talking. "What?" he said. "There's something in the other one too." "Hair?" "I don't know." He told me not to open any more of it. He started screen recording the call on his end, which is exactly the kind of thing he would do. He said if this turned into something serious, we'd need proof. I remember thinking that was dramatic. It wasn't dramatic. It was one of the only smart things we did. We started searching the brand online. The company website was super normal. Too normal, actually. Smiling workers in hairnets, clean production room photos, local values, family legacy, fresh quality, hometown pride, all that garbage. Their Facebook page had posts about school fundraisers, new packaging, and people commenting stuff like, "Best lunch meat around." Jason said, "Go to Maps." So I did. I looked up the company name and found their listed processing location. It wasn't in town exactly, but outside it, past the old service road near the woods. I knew the area, because my stepdad used to take that road to avoid traffic by the highway. There are old warehouses out there, an abandoned lot, and one broken sign that's been half fallen over for years. What if that's just where it's packaged? I said. Jason shrugged on camera. Then why does their website barely show anything? And why does the address look like it belongs to a place people forgot existed? That was Jason all over. Once he got suspicious, he committed. He told me to check reviews. Most were boring. Normal. 5 stars. Great prices. Good local quality. Then we found one weird one. It was old, buried way down, and written by an account with no profile picture. It just said, "Watch where your town gets fed from." No context. No reply. Nothing. I actually laughed when I read it because it sounded so fake and dramatic. But Jason didn't laugh. Click the account. There was nothing there. I said, "This could literally be some boomer being weird." "Yeah," he said, "or not." I should probably explain something about Jason here. He was the kind of person who could turn anything into a mission. If a teacher lost homework, he'd talk like we were covering up evidence. If somebody's older brother got arrested, he'd suddenly become an expert in surveillance footage and timelines. It was annoying most of the time. But that night, it got under my skin in a different way because he wasn't acting excited anymore. He looked serious. He told me to save every screenshot, every picture, every label. So I made a folder in my camera roll and dumped everything in there. Around then, my mom texted me, asking if I had eaten. I stared at the message for like 10 seconds before replying, "Yeah," which was technically true, even though I immediately felt sick after sending it. Jason said, "You told her?" "No." "Good." I looked at him. "Why good?" "Because if this is nothing, we look stupid. And if it's something, I don't want adults shutting us down before we know what's going on." That should have sounded dumb. It should have sounded like exactly the kind of thing 2 teenagers say right before doing something reckless and pointless. Instead, I said, "So what do we do?" He leaned closer to his screen and lowered his voice for no reason, even though he was in his own room. "We go there." I remember the rain getting louder right then, like the whole house was suddenly wrapped in static. I actually looked toward the back window because the sound had changed. The yard lights from the neighbor's place were shining through the wet glass, and everything outside looked blurred and wrong. "We are not going there right now," I said. "Not right now," he said. "Tomorrow, after school." "Jason, it's a food processing place, not Area 51. "Then we check and prove it's normal." "And if it's not?" He didn't answer that immediately. He just looked away from the camera, probably thinking. When he looked back, his face had changed again. "My uncle used to deliver freezer units," he said. "A couple years ago, he mentioned some old factory out near those woods. Said people still used the outer buildings for storage, even though the main place looked abandoned." I felt my stomach sink harder than before. "You never told me that." "Because it sounded like random old guy talk." "Is this the same place?" "I don't know," he said. "That's why we go." We stayed on FaceTime way longer than we needed to. Neither of us wanted to admit it, but I think both of us were unnerved by then. We started doing that thing people do when they're scared, but pretending not to be scared, where they keep talking about practical stuff to avoid saying what they're actually thinking. Flashlights, charged phones. Don't tell anybody yet. Take bikes or get dropped off nearby. Location sharing on. Record everything. Jason even made a group chat with just me and him, and named it Lunch Meat Task Force, which would have been funny if I didn't still have that strand of hair sealed in a Ziploc bag on the counter. Before we hung up, he said, "Check one more thing." "What?" "The package, back label. Where exactly does it say it was processed?" I turned the pack over again and read the tiny print near the bottom. Manufactured and distributed by the brand name, same P.O. box, same listed address near the service road. But under that, in text so small I had missed it the first time, there was another line. Facility code only. No business name, just a number, a dash, and 2 letters. "That's weird, right?" I said. Jason nodded slowly. "Screenshot that." I did. Then he said, "Tomorrow we find out what that code belongs to." After we ended the call, I didn't eat anything else. I threw the sandwich away, but I kept the packaging, which sounds insane now that I'm saying it, except I knew even then that I might need it. I put everything in 2 grocery bags and hid them behind a cereal box in the pantry so my mom wouldn't toss them. I tried playing Xbox after that just to reset my brain, but I kept checking my phone every 2 seconds. Jason was sending me links, screenshots, random map pins, and one blurry satellite image where the building looked almost swallowed by trees. At 11:47 p.m., he sent, "You awake?" I replied right away, "Yeah." Then he sent a screenshot of an old local forum thread. Most of it was broken image links and people arguing about road closures, but one comment mentioned truck traffic by the closed factory still running at night. That comment was from 3 years ago. Under it, somebody else had replied, "That place was supposed to be empty." I read that maybe 10 times. By midnight, the rain had settled into that steady sound that makes everything feel later than it is. The house was dark. My mom still wasn't back, and I was lying in bed with my screen brightness all the way down, flipping between our chat, Google Maps, and the photos of the meat. Every time I looked at the pictures, I got that same gross shiver. I think this is the point where I should say, we could have stopped. We definitely could have. We could have reported it to the store, called the company, told our parents, posted the pictures, and let other people deal with it. Any normal person would have done one of those things. Instead, all I could think about was that address, that building, that weird facility code, and the fact that I had eaten food from that brand my whole life without thinking twice. The next day at school, Jason barely spoke to anyone except me. He came into first period late with an energy drink and looked like he hadn't slept at all. He slid into the seat behind me and tapped my shoulder once. "You bring the package?" I nodded. He just said, "Good." That entire school day felt fake. Teachers talking, phones buzzing, people complaining about assignments, somebody laughing too loud in the hallway, somebody trying to trade fries at lunch. Everything normal, which somehow made what we were planning feel even worse. By the last bell, the sky had gone dark again, and Jason met me by the bike rack with a black hoodie, a backpack, and the kind of face people get when they're trying hard not to back out. "You still doing this?" I asked. He looked at me like I was stupid. "You called me because you found hair in your food," he said. "Now we have an address in the woods and a mystery factory supplying half the town. So yeah, I'm still doing this." We rode out past the gas station, past the faded welcome sign, and down the service road where the sidewalks disappeared and the streetlights got farther apart. Cars got rarer. The air smelled wet and cold and metallic, like rain sitting on concrete. Neither of us talked much after a while. The closer we got, the quieter everything felt. And when we finally saw the tree line opening up around that old property, with the broken fencing and the shape of a huge low building sitting behind it, like it had been waiting there the whole time, I remember gripping my handlebars so hard my fingers hurt. Because that was the moment it stopped feeling like two idiots chasing a gross food complaint. That was the moment it started feeling like we had found something we were never supposed to notice. And standing there in the rain, staring at that old factory at the edge of our town, Jason said the one thing that made me want to turn around and go home more than anything else. There are lights on inside. The weird thing is, we didn't even go inside that night. We just stood there, like idiots, bikes dropped in the wet grass, staring at a building that should have been completely dead. From the road, the place looked abandoned enough to ignore. The fence was rusted and bent in spots, one section pushed down like someone had driven through it years ago, and nobody bothered fixing it. There were no signs, no branding, nothing that connected it to the clean, friendly company website we had just seen the night before. Just a wide, low structure with stained concrete walls and a roof that sagged slightly in the middle. But those lights, they weren't bright, not like a factory in full operation. It was more like scattered, a few dull yellow glows behind dirty windows, flickering slightly, like old fluorescent bulbs that buzz if you stand too close. Jason stepped forward first. "Tell me you see that," he said. "I see it," I answered, quieter than I meant to. We didn't talk much after that. We just moved closer, dragging the bikes along instead of riding them, so the gravel wouldn't crunch too loud. It felt stupid being quiet, but neither of us wanted to be the one making noise. As we got closer to the fence, I noticed something else. Tire tracks, fresh ones. The ground was soft from the rain, and you could see where something heavy had driven in recently. Not just one set either, multiple overlapping tracks, some deeper than others. Trucks probably, not old either. The edges were still sharp. "This place isn't abandoned," Jason muttered. "No," I said. "It's just pretending to be." There was a gap in the fence where it had been pushed down. We didn't even look at each other before going through. That's the part I replay a lot now. How easy it was to just cross that line without really thinking. Inside the property, everything felt off. No voices, no machinery noise, no hum of generators or anything you'd expect from an active facility. Just the rain hitting metal and the occasional creak from somewhere in the structure. But the lights were still on, and we didn't get too close to the building. Not that night. Jason pulled out his phone and started recording, whispering commentary like he was documenting evidence for something bigger than both of us. "Old facility," he said quietly. "Still active. No signage. Truck tracks visible. No official listing besides that P.O. box." I scanned the walls, the windows, anything that might give us a clue. That's when I saw it. Near one of the side entrances, barely visible under the grime, there was a symbol painted on a metal door. Not a logo I recognized, just a simple mark. Two lines intersecting, almost like a distorted X with a small circle off-center. "Jason," I whispered. "Look." He walked over, filming it. "That's not the brand," he said. "No." We stood there for a second, just staring at it. Then, from somewhere deeper inside the building, there was a sound. Not loud, not clear, but definitely not something empty buildings make. A metallic clatter, followed by something that almost sounded like movement. We both froze instantly. Jason killed the commentary mid-sentence. The silence after that was worse than the noise itself. "Did you hear that?" I said. "Yeah." We didn't move for what felt like a full minute, just listening, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't, but that didn't make it better. Jason slowly backed away from the door. "We're not going in there right now," he said. For once, I agreed immediately. We got out of there fast after that. Not running, but close. Once we were back on the road and far enough away that the building wasn't visible anymore, it felt like we could finally breathe again. Neither of us spoke for a while as we rode back toward town. Cars started appearing again. Streetlights. Normal stuff. It all felt weirdly artificial after what we had just seen. When we reached the gas station near the entrance to town, Jason stopped. "I need caffeine," he said. We went inside, dripping water everywhere, probably looking like we'd just crawled out of a ditch. The cashier didn't even look up. Just another late-night stop in a place where nothing ever happens. Jason grabbed 2 energy drinks and tossed one to me. We sat outside under the flickering light by the ice machine, phones out, both of us going through what we recorded. The footage looked worse than I expected. Grainy, dark. The building looked even more wrong on camera. The symbol on the door stood out the most. It almost seemed clearer on video than it had in real life. "Pause it there," I said. Jason did. "That symbol, screenshot it." Already did. Of course he had. That's when he said something that shifted everything again. "Nah, we don't look this up normally." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Google's not going to tell us what that is." I took a sip of the energy drink and immediately regretted it. My stomach was still messed up from earlier. "So what? Reddit will?" I asked. "Maybe." And just like that, we were back in it. We went home separately, but stayed on call the entire time. The second I got into my room, I shut the door, turned off the lights, and sat on my bed with my laptop open. Jason had already made a throwaway account. We started with the obvious, Google image search. Nothing, not even close matches. We tried describing it in different ways. Industrial symbol, X circle. Factory marking, unknown logo. Anything we could think of. Nothing. Then Reddit. We posted the image in a couple of forums, or one general, "What is this symbol?" type subreddit, one local community thread, and one that Jason insisted on posting to that was more conspiracy focused. Replies started coming in within minutes. Most of them were useless. "Looks like graffiti. Probably a custom logo. Why do you care?" But then there were a few that weren't like that. One person asked where we found it. We didn't answer. Another said, "That's not something you'll find publicly indexed." Jason read that out loud. "What does that even mean?" I asked. "It means they know something," he said. "Or they're pretending to." We kept refreshing. More comments came in, but none of them actually gave us anything solid. So we moved to TikTok. Jason edited a short clip of the building, no location info, no context, and posted it with a vague caption. Within an hour, it had a few hundred views, a couple comments saying it looked creepy. One person said it reminded them of an old warehouse near their town. Nothing useful. Instagram, same story. Even Facebook groups, which I thought might actually help since it was local, gave us nothing except people asking why we were sneaking around private property. By around 1 a.m., we were both exhausted and frustrated. "We're missing something," Jason said. "Or there's nothing to find," I replied. He was quiet for a second. Then he said it. "We try somewhere else." I already knew what he meant before he said it. "No," I said immediately. "Yes." "No, Jason. It's just looking," he said. We're not doing anything. That's not how that works. He sighed. You saw that place. You saw the tracks. You heard whatever that was inside. And you want to just... What? Drop it? I didn't answer, because I didn't want to drop it. That was the problem. Jason lowered his voice again, even though we were just on a call. We go on the dark web. I stared at my screen. I had heard about it, obviously. Everyone has. But it always felt like one of those things that exists in stories more than real life. Something people exaggerate until that moment. You know how to do that? I asked. I know enough. That should not have been reassuring, but somehow it was. It took us a while to set everything up, longer than I expected. Jason walked me through downloading a browser I'd only ever heard about in passing. He kept repeating things like, don't click random links, and don't download anything, like we were about to step into something way bigger than we understood. The whole time, I had that same feeling I had standing outside the factory, like we were crossing another line. When it finally loaded, it didn't look dramatic or scary. It looked empty. Basic pages, strange URLs, no familiar layouts, no blue check marks, no verified anything, no normal structure, just links. Jason sent me one. Start here, he said. It was a directory of forums. We searched the symbol first. Nothing obvious. Then the facility code. That's when things changed. One result popped up, buried in a thread that didn't even look related at first glance. The title was vague, something about regional suppliers. Jason clicked it before I could say anything. The page loaded slowly, text only, no images, a list of names, not brand names, codes, rows of them, organized, structured, and halfway down the page, the exact code from the back of my food package. I felt my chest tighten immediately. Jason, I said. I see it, he replied. Next to the code, there was a name, not the brand we knew, something else, something we had never seen before. No logo, no website, no presence anywhere we had searched, just a name, short, clean, and completely untraceable. What is that? I asked. Jason didn't answer, because under the name, there was a link. He hovered over it for a second, then clicked. The page that loaded after that is the moment everything stopped being curiosity, because whatever we thought we were looking into before, it wasn't even close. And next to me, through the speaker, I heard Jason make a sound I had never heard from him before. Not joking, not pretending, just quiet, broken panic. And then he started crying. Jason didn't stop right away. At first it was just heavy breathing through the mic, unlike he forgot how to inhale properly. And then it turned into this quiet, shaky sound I'd never heard from him before. Not joking, not exaggerating, actual panic, the kind that makes your stomach drop because you realize whatever's on his screen is worse than anything you're imagining. Jason, I said, what is it? He didn't answer. Jason, don't! He cut himself off, voice cracking. Don't scroll yet. That made it worse, because of course I was going to scroll. The page had loaded fully by then. It still looked simple. No images at first, just text. But the layout was wrong. Not messy, not broken. Too organized, like a catalog. Categories, listings, structured in a way that made it feel official without actually showing anything identifiable. At the top, there was that same name tied to the code. Under it, sections, supply tiers, regions, availability windows. None of it made sense at first glance. It looked like logistics language, inventory, distribution, the kind of thing you'd expect from wholesalers. Then I scrolled, and the wording shifted, not dramatically, just enough. Processed units, age range brackets, condition notes. I remember stopping completely, like my brain just refused to keep going for a second. Jason, I said slowly, this doesn't look like food. He made a sound like he was trying to speak but couldn't. I kept reading anyway. There were listings. Each one had a code, a short description, and a status. Some marked reserved, some marked in transit, some marked archived. No photos in the main list, but there were links. I hovered over one. My hand was actually shaking a little at that point, which is not something I ever admit, but it's true. Everything in my room felt too quiet. Even the rain outside had faded into this distant background noise. Don't click anything, Jason said quickly, like he finally snapped back. You already did, I replied. I didn't know. Just don't click more. I should have listened. I didn't. I clicked one. The page that opened took longer to load. When it did, it wasn't graphic in the way horror movies are graphic. There was no sudden shock, no jump scare. Just information. Cold, detailed, clinical. A profile. Not a product. A person. No name. Just a designation code. Physical description. Height, weight, distinguishing marks. And under that, processing status. I felt like my entire body went cold, because that word again, processing, like it was nothing, like it wasn't talking about someone who had a life before that page. I scrolled further before I could stop myself. There was a section labeled Final Allocation, and that's when it clicked. Not all at once, not like a dramatic realization, more like pieces sliding into place in a way that made everything worse the more it made sense. The supply tiers, the distribution, the hidden brand, the local factory, the meat. I pushed my chair back so hard it hit the wall behind me. No, I said out loud, even though Jason could still hear me. No, no, no. Close it, he said. Close it right now. You saw it too? Yes. What is that? What are we looking at? He didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, and very quietly, scroll back to the code. I did. Back to the list. Back to the rows of codes. Back to ours. He said, look at the region tag. I zoomed in on it. It matched our area. Exactly. Not just the state. Our town. I felt something twist in my stomach. That factory, I said. Yeah, he replied. That's not just a factory. No. I stared at the screen again, trying to find anything that would prove we were wrong. A joke. A fake site. Some kind of elaborate trolling forum. But nothing about it felt fake. It was too structured, too consistent, too normal in the way it presented something completely abnormal. What is the brand name? I asked. Jason hesitated. Then he read it out loud. I'm not writing it here. Not because I forgot, because I don't want it repeated. Even typing it into that site felt like doing something I couldn't undo. It doesn't exist anywhere, I said. Exactly. We sat in silence for a while. After that, just the faint hum of our mics and the occasional crackle from a bad connection. Finally, I said, we need to report this. To who? Jason shot back immediately. And say what? Hey, we went on the dark web and found a secret human supply chain connected to our local deli meat. When he said it like that, it sounded insane. Because it was insane, but that didn't make it less real. My mom buys that stuff, I said. Everyone does. Yeah, he said. That's the point. That sentence stuck, because suddenly this wasn't just some creepy discovery. It was everywhere. Our town, Our stores, our food, everything that had felt normal before now felt contaminated. I looked back at the page, at the codes, at the statuses. Then I noticed something new, a column I hadn't paid attention to before. Origin. Most of them were vague, regional tags, facility numbers, but a few had notes, short ones. I scrolled slowly until I found ours again. Next to the code, under Origin, there was a reference, not just the facility code, a location tag. I zoomed in, coordinates, actual coordinates. Jason, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There's a location. I see it. Is that? I'm checking. I heard him typing fast, way faster than before. Then he went quiet. For a long second. 2, 3. It's the same place, he said finally. What? The factory, Aunt, the one we went to. My chest tightened again, like everything just locked into place in the worst possible way. That's where this is coming from, I said. Yeah. And it's not just storage. No. We didn't say the rest out loud. We didn't have to, because now we both understood what that building actually was. Not abandoned, not partially used, active, hidden, and tied to something way bigger than just our town. I minimized the browser for a second and just stared at my desktop, like that would somehow reset everything. It didn't. What do we do? I asked. Jason didn't answer right away. Then he said something that I should have shut down immediately. We go back. I actually laughed a little, not because it was funny, because it was so obviously the worst possible idea. Jason. No, listen, he said quickly. We have proof now. Real proof. Not just hair and food. Not just a weird building. We know what that place is. And you want to walk into it. I want to document it, he said. If we can get anything, video, audio, anything real, we can't be ignored. And if we get caught, he hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. We won't, he said anyway. That was a lie. We both knew it. But the problem was, I was already thinking the same thing. About the coordinates, about the listings, about how many people might be tied to that place. You said your uncle mentioned outer buildings, right? I asked. Yeah. Then maybe there's a way in without going through the main part. Jason didn't respond immediately. Then I heard it. That shift in his voice again. Not panic this time. Focus. Tomorrow night, he said. No, I replied. Not night. Too obvious. Too risky. Then when? Evening, I said. Before it gets fully dark. Enough light to see, but not enough people around. He thought about it. Yeah, he said. Okay. We started planning again. And this time, it wasn't a joke. Not lunch meat task force. Not fake detective stuff. Real planning. Entry points. What to bring. How long to stay. What to do if something goes wrong. Location sharing stayed on. Phones fully charged. Record everything. Leave if anything feels off. That last part felt stupid, even as we said it, because everything already felt off. Before we ended the call, I went back to the page one last time. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself it was still there. It was. Same codes, same listings, same quiet, organized horror, sitting behind a screen like it was just another system. But something had changed. At the bottom of the page, a new entry had appeared. I'm not going to pretend I know how long it had been there. Maybe we just missed it. Maybe it updated. But it was new to me. A status line. Short, simple, and somehow worse than everything else. Active intake. Local. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that factory again. The lights, the door, that symbol. And now I knew what was behind it. The next evening, Jason met me at the same spot near the service road. No jokes this time, no energy drinks, just a backpack and a flashlight clipped to the side. "You ready?" he asked. I looked past him, toward the tree line in the distance, toward that building, toward the place that shouldn't exist, but did. "No," I said honestly. Then I picked up my bike anyway, and we went back into the woods, because at that point, it didn't feel like curiosity anymore. It felt like if we didn't do something, nobody would, and we didn't talk much on the way back. Same road, same broken fence, same stretch of trees that seemed to swallow sound the deeper you went. But everything felt different now, like the place knew we understood it. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still soaked, our shoes sinking slightly with every step. The air smelled worse this time too, thicker, heavier, not just wet concrete and rust, something else underneath it, something stale. Jason was walking a little ahead of me, scanning the area like he actually knew what he was doing. He didn't, neither of us did, but he had that same focused look from the night before, like once he locked onto something, nothing else existed. "There," he whispered. He pointed toward the side of the property, further down from where we had been before, past the main entrance. Closer to the back, there was another structure, smaller, low roof, metal siding, one dim light above a side door. "Outer building," I said. "Yeah." We moved slower now. Every step felt louder than it should have been, even though we were trying not to make noise. I kept checking behind us without meaning to, like I expected someone to already be there. The door to the smaller building wasn't fully shut. It was slightly open, just enough to notice if you were looking for it. Jason turned to me. "This is it," he said. I nodded, even though my chest was tight again. He pushed the door gently. It creaked, not loud, but enough that both of us froze instantly. We waited. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Just silence. So we went in. The first thing I noticed was the temperature. Colder than outside. Not freezing, but controlled, like a storage space. The second thing was the lighting. Dim, flickering, the kind that hums faintly if you focus on it too long. Inside, it looked normal. At first, shelving units, crates, plastic bins, stacked boxes with labels. It looked like any back-end storage area you'd see in a warehouse or distribution center, which somehow made it worse, because we knew what this place was connected to. Jason immediately pulled out his phone and started recording again. "Stay near the door," I whispered. He ignored that completely and stepped further in. "Jason, we need footage," he said quietly. I followed anyway. Of course I did. We moved between the shelves slowly, scanning labels, trying to make sense of anything. Most of it looked like standard packaging materials, wrapping, containers, sealed units, and then we found the first thing that wasn't normal. A crate, different from the others. No brand, no shipping label, just a printed code. Same format as the one from the website. Jason crouched next to it. "Don't open that," I said immediately. He didn't, but he filmed it closely. "Same structure," he whispered. "Same coding system." My eyes kept drifting around the room. That's when I noticed something else. Another door. On the far side, heavier. Metal. Slightly ajar. "Jason," I said quieter now. He looked up. I pointed. He stood slowly. We both knew that door didn't lead to storage. It led further in, We shouldn't have gone through it. That's the part where everything could have stopped. Instead, Jason walked toward it, and I followed. The moment we pushed it open, the smell hit first. Stronger. Not unbearable. Not like something out of a horror movie, but wrong. Like something that shouldn't be inside a place tied to food. The lighting inside was worse. Long hallway, concrete floors, stained in places, pipes running along the ceiling, and that sound again. Not clear, but present, movement, somewhere deeper. Jason whispered, "We go a little further, then we leave." I nodded. We moved down the hallway slowly, step by step, both of us trying not to look at the stains on the ground too closely. There were doors along the sides, some closed, some slightly open. Jason peeked into one, empty. Another, storage. Then, a sound behind us, not from ahead, behind, close. We both turned instantly, and that's when we saw him. A man, standing at the end of the hallway we had just come from. I don't know how long he had been there. I don't know if he saw us enter, but he was looking directly at us now. No uniform, just dark clothes, gloves, and the second our eyes met, he started moving, fast. "Run!" Jason yelled. We didn't think. We just ran. Back down the hallway, shoes slamming against concrete, the sound echoing too loud, too exposed. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like I couldn't breathe properly. Behind us, footsteps, heavy, gaining. This way. Jason grabbed my arm and pulled me toward one of the side doors instead of the main exit. We burst into another room, on knocking into a metal cart that rattled loudly as it tipped. "Go, go, go!" We cut through it, looking for another exit, another door, anything, but the layout didn't make sense. It wasn't a straight path. It twisted, turned, led deeper instead of out. "Jason, this is wrong." "I know." The footsteps were still behind us. Closer now. Too close. We reached another door and pushed through it, stumbling into a larger space. This one wasn't like the others. Wider. Open. Tables. Equipment. Covered shapes we didn't look at long enough to understand. "Where's the exit?" I shouted. Jason spun around, trying to find anything. Then he stopped. Completely. Like he hit a wall. "Jason, move." He didn't. He was staring at something. On one of the tables. I followed his gaze. And at first, my brain didn't process it. It just registered. Shape. Then detail. Then meaning. An arm. Separated. Still. A tattoo on the forearm. Faded, but clear enough to recognize. Jason made a sound I don't think I'll ever forget. Not a scream. Not even a word. Just something breaking. He stepped forward slowly. "No," he said, shaking his head. "No, no, no. Jason, we have to go. That's..." His voice cracked completely. "That's him." My stomach dropped. "What?" "That's my grandpa." Everything stopped. For half a second, the entire world just stopped. Because I remembered. He had told me, 3 months ago. Missing. No explanation. Just gone. "Jason," I said, grabbing his shoulder. "We have to leave right now." He wasn't listening. He stepped closer to the table, shaking, staring at the tattoo, like if he looked long enough, it would change. Behind us, the footsteps entered the room. Slow now, not running anymore. Walking, like he knew we had nowhere to go. I turned. The man was in the doorway, blocking the only exit we saw. "Jason," I said, louder now. "Now!" That snapped something in him. Not fully, but enough. He stumbled back, eyes still locked on that table, breathing uneven, tears still on his face. We moved. fast, not toward the man, but past him, because there was a second opening I hadn't noticed before. A side passage, narrow, dark. We sprinted for it. The man lunged forward. Missed! His hand brushed my hoodie, but didn't catch. And then we were through, running blind. No idea where it led, just moving. Because stopping wasn't an option anymore. Not after what we saw. Not after what Jason knew now. Not after realizing this wasn't just something happening in the shadows. It had already taken people from our lives, and we had just walked straight into it. We didn't stop running until the building was gone, not just out of sight. Gone in that way where your brain starts doubting it was ever there at all. The passage we took spat us out somewhere behind the main structure, near a line of trees that cut into the deeper part of the woods. We didn't question it. We just ran straight into the dark, branches snapping under our feet, mud slipping beneath us, both of us breathing like we were about to collapse. I kept expecting to hear him behind us, footsteps, shouting, anything, but there was nothing. That was worse, because it meant either we got lucky, or he didn't need to chase us. Jason finally tripped over a root and went down hard. I stopped, turned back, grabbed his arm, pulling him up. Get up! Get up! He didn't fight me, but he wasn't fully there either. His face was empty, not shocked, not panicked. Just gone, and we have to keep moving, I said. He nodded slightly. We pushed through the trees until we hit the edge of the service road again. Our bikes were still there, somehow untouched, leaning exactly where we left them, like nothing had happened. That felt wrong too. Everything felt wrong. We didn't say anything as we rode back. No plan, no discussion, just pure instinct. Get away, get home, don't stop. By the time I reached my house, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my keys, trying to unlock the door. Inside, everything was normal. Lights on, TV running quietly in the living room. My mom calling out, "You're late," like that was the biggest issue. I mumbled something back. I don't even remember what, and went straight to my room, locking the door behind me. My phone was still recording. I hadn't even realized. I stopped it immediately. For a second, I just stared at the file. Then I opened it. The footage was chaos. Shaky movement, heavy breathing, flashes of hallways, doors, glimpses of rooms we ran through too fast to process. But it was real. All of it. And near the end, there was a frame. Just one. Clear enough. The room. The table. Jason stepping forward. I paused it, then closed the video. I couldn't look at it again. My phone buzzed. Jason. I answered instantly. He didn't say hello. They took him, he said. His voice was flat. Not crying anymore. Not breaking. Just empty. I know, I said quietly. That tattoo. I used to see it every summer, he continued. When we'd go to his place, he'd sit outside, drinking coffee, telling the same stories over and over. I didn't know what to say. There was no investigation, he added. They just said he probably left. That happens sometimes. My stomach twisted. Of course they did. Of course it was easy to explain away. Small town, old man, disappears. People move on, but he didn't move on. None of them did. He didn't leave, Jason said. No, I replied. He didn't. There was silence for a while. Then Jason said something that changed the direction of everything. We're not just reporting this. I sat up. What do you mean? I mean reporting it isn't enough, he said. They're not going to believe us right away. And even if they do, this is bigger than one call. So what? We just, what? Go back, I asked. No, he said. We make sure it can't keep running. That sounded dangerous immediately. Jason, they're feeding people this, he cut in. Our families, everyone, and nobody knows. I know, I said, but we're not. We already went inside, he snapped. We already saw it. You think we can just walk away now? I didn't answer, because again, he wasn't wrong. That night we didn't sleep. Not really. We stayed on call, going through everything we had. The footage, the screenshots, the site, the codes, all the coordinates. We organized it. Backups, multiple copies, cloud storage, email drafts, everything. And then Jason said, we hit them where it hurts. I knew what he meant before he explained it. Supply, distribution. If what we saw was real, and it was, then that place depended on staying hidden and running uninterrupted. So we made a plan, not a smart one, not a safe one, but a plan. The next day, Jason skipped school. I pretended to go, then left halfway through. We met again, this time not at the road, but further out, near a utility access path Jason found on a map. It connected behind the property, closer to where the trucks would likely come in and out. We didn't go inside the building again, not like before. We didn't need to. We knew enough. Instead, we waited, and we didn't have to wait long. Around late afternoon, a truck came, unmarked, no branding. It slowed as it approached the property, turning through the broken fence area like it had done it 100 times. Jason started recording immediately. Got it, he whispered. Keep filming, I said. We stayed hidden until it passed. Then we moved. Fast. Not toward the building. Toward the road. Jason pulled something out of his bag. Not anything insane. Not like what you're probably thinking. But enough. Enough to cause a problem. Enough to stop things temporarily. We didn't stick around to watch. We said it. We left. And about 10 minutes later, from the distance, we heard it. A loud, sharp burst. Not huge, but enough. Enough to disrupt. Enough to force attention. Sirens followed. And not immediately, but soon enough. And once they started, they didn't stop. That night, everything changed. Police blocked off the road. Then more vehicles came. Not local. Black SUVs. Unmarked. People in jackets that didn't belong to our town. By morning, it was everywhere. News, online posts, rumors spreading faster than facts. Investigation. Illegal operations. Unregistered facility. They didn't say everything, not publicly. They never do. But it was enough. The factory was shut down, fully. No more trucks, no more lights, no more pretending it didn't exist. Jason and I didn't talk much after that. Not because we had nothing to say, but because everything that needed to be said already had been. A week later, there were reports of arrests, multiple, connections to networks, distribution chains. They used words like trafficking and black market operations. They didn't say the rest, but we knew. We always would. Jason's grandpa was listed among the identified victims, not officially at first, but eventually, quietly. Closed case. That's how they handled it. Closed. Like that meant something. Life in town tried to go back to normal. Stores still stocked shelves. People still bought food. Different brands now, different suppliers. But every time I walk past those aisles, I still think about that label, that code, that second name no one was supposed to find. I haven't been back to that road since. I don't think Jason has either. We don't talk about it, not directly, but sometimes he sends me things, links, news updates, small pieces, like we're still watching, making sure it stays buried, or maybe making sure it doesn't. I started writing all of this because I thought getting it out would make it feel finished, like something with an ending. But it doesn't feel like that. Not really. Because 3 nights ago, I got home late. Same kind of night as before. Phone in my hand, head buzzing from too much caffeine. The street was quiet. Normal. Until I looked up and saw it. A black van. Parked across from my house. Engine off. Lights off. Just sitting there. I told myself it was nothing. Just someone visiting. Wrong address. Anything normal. I went inside anyway. Locked the door. Checked the windows. Tried to ignore it. But when I went back to my room and looked out again, it was still there. Not moving. Not leaving. Just waiting. And right as I was about to close the curtain, my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. No contact. No history. Just one line. You shouldn't have looked. I bought a dog from the dark web. He was trained to fight monsters, and we just found one in our forest, near our town. I was not planning to talk about any of this tonight. Honestly, I was supposed to be doing normal people stuff. I had laundry half done, a cold McDonald's Coke, sweating on my desk, 3 missed calls from my sister, and that gross wired feeling you get when you've had too much caffeine, but you're still exhausted. It's raining outside right now, the kind of steady rain that makes everything past the porch light look fake. And I've been sitting here for the last hour, opening Reddit, closing it, checking Instagram, reopening my messages, staring at the same unread email from work like it's going to somehow solve my life for me. But it won't, because none of that matters compared to what's been happening out here. 3 nights ago, I buried my dog. That sentence still doesn't feel real when I say it. He'd been with me through everything. Long drives to feed stores, muddy mornings, power outages, nights when the wind hit the side of the house so hard, I thought a tree was going to come through the wall. I live on a farm near the forest line, far enough from town that DoorDash won't even pretend to come out here, close enough that I can still make a Starbucks run if I'm desperate and willing to waste half an hour. Nights are different out here. They always have been. Quiet in a way that doesn't feel peaceful. Quiet in a way that makes you notice every single sound. After he died, the whole place changed. Not in some dramatic movie way. Just little things. Empty food bowl still by the back door. No nails clicking on the floorboards. A no shape curled up by the mudroom heater. I kept hearing phantom sounds and looking up, expecting him to be there. I didn't realize how much of my life had formed itself around that dog until there was just this gap everywhere. And maybe that's why I did what I did next. Maybe grief makes you stupid. Maybe being alone too long out here does something to your head. Maybe staying up until 3 a.m., scrolling through old photos, weird forums, dead links, random Telegram channels, and places on the internet nobody normal should be on is the perfect recipe for ruining your life. Because that's how I found the listing. A dog. Not just any dog. A protection dog, according to the post. But the description got stranger the more I read. It said the dog could secure any home. It said he had been trained for threats, human and otherwise. It said he was unusually intelligent, highly obedient, and effective against things that do not belong near the living. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. If somebody else posted this, I'd think they were either lying for attention or halfway through a breakdown. But at the time, I was sitting in bed with the rain tapping at the windows, my phone at 12%, no sleep, in almost a full day, and that awful hollow feeling in my chest where grief and bad decisions start shaking hands. The post wasn't on any normal site. It was buried behind links that looked abandoned, forums with usernames that were just strings of numbers, message threads full of paranoid people arguing about scams, surveillance, and private breeders. There were no normal pictures either. Just one image of a large dog standing in darkness, the flash catching one side of his face. Big ears, strong shoulders, eyes reflecting white like a deer on a highway at night. German Shepherd, I thought immediately. Under the image was one line: for remote properties, wooded areas, and repeat disturbances. Repeat disturbances. That part got under my skin for a reason I didn't want to admit, because for the last month, even before my old dog passed, there had been things around the property I couldn't explain. Not horror movie things. Not at first. Just weird stuff. The barn light turning on after I knew I'd shut it off. Footprints at the tree line too long and narrow to be from any neighbor I had. One of the goat pens left unlatched, even though I'm obsessive about checking it. My dog used to stand at the back window at night and just stare. No barking, no growling. Just staring out at the woods like he was listening to something too far away for me to hear. After he died, that feeling got worse. The farm sits with open fields in front and woods pressing in behind it, thick and old and darker than they should be. During the day, it looks normal enough. Tractor tracks, feed bins, fencing, a gravel drive with potholes I keep pretending I'll fix. But at night, the forest feels close. Way closer than it is. I'd catch myself locking the doors earlier, checking the motion cams from bed, muting and unmuting my group chat because I kept almost texting the guys from town to ask if they'd ever seen anything weird out here, then deciding I sounded insane. So when I saw a listing for a dog that was supposedly meant for places exactly like mine, I kept reading when I should have closed the page. There was no seller name, just a contact button and a warning that said serious buyers only. Payment methods I'm not even going to get into. Pickup instructions available after screening. I should have left it alone. Instead, I messaged. The reply came in 8 minutes. That was the first thing that made me cold. No greeting, no small talk, just questions. Property type, nearest town, livestock, tree coverage, distance to neighboring houses, whether I had experienced trespasses, wildlife losses, or mimic activity. I remember sitting upright in bed after reading that last one. Mimic activity. I actually typed back. What does that mean? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, came back, then the response. Voices outside when no one is there. Movement resembling familiar people or animals, knocking where there should be no one, calling from the woods. I stared at that for a long time, because I had heard knocking twice, not on the front door, on the side wall of the house, near the kitchen window, after midnight. Both times I'd grabbed a flashlight and looked out and seen absolutely nothing except the fence line and the wet grass shining in the beam. I told myself it was a branch, even though there are no branches close enough to hit that wall. And once, a week before my dog died, I heard what sounded exactly like him whining outside my bedroom door. He was asleep in the mudroom at the time. I went to check because I knew that sound, and there he was, lying down, head up, staring past me toward the hallway like I was the one making him nervous. I never told anybody that. Not even now. I know some of you are going to say grief can mess with your senses, sleep deprivation, stress, all that. And sure, maybe. I would love for that to be true. I wanted it to be true so badly that I almost blocked the cellar right there and went to bed. But I didn't. I answered the questions. By the end of it, whoever I was talking to told me there was one dog available that matched my location profile. Male, young, trained, not suitable for suburban homes, not suitable for apartment living, not recommended for owners who ignored instructions. There was one more line under that. Do not name him after the dead. That one bothered me so much, I actually laughed, just out of nerves. I remember setting my phone down, getting up, walking to the kitchen, and standing there in the light from the stove clock at 2:41 in the morning while the rain hissed in the gutters. I thought about deleting the whole conversation. I thought about texting my sister back. I thought about how pathetic it would sound to explain that I was considering buying a mystery German Shepherd from some dark web lunatic because my house felt wrong without a dog in it. Instead, I opened the chat again. There was a location pin waiting for me. Not an address, just coordinates. 2 hours from me, near an old service road outside a town I'd only ever passed through on the way to the airport. Pick up the next evening. Come alone. Bring a crate or tarp for the back seat. No collar on arrival. Do not attempt to restrain unless instructed. At that point, I should have realized I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But grief doesn't make decisions feel dangerous at first. It makes them feel necessary. The whole next day was off. I barely slept. I missed a work email, forgot to return a call from the feed supplier, and spent most of the afternoon drifting around the house in that fog where everything feels a half-second delayed. I kept checking the coordinates like they might disappear, kept looking out toward the woods behind the barn. Around sunset, I noticed the back gate was open again. I know I had latched it. I walked out there in boots and a hoodie with my phone flashlight on, rainwater still dripping from the fence posts, and I felt stupid the whole time. I told myself I was wound up and seeing patterns where there weren't any. The gate could have slipped. I could have forgotten. The human brain loves a story, especially when you're lonely and sleep deprived. Then I heard something from the trees. Not loud. Just enough to stop me. A sound like something moving through wet brush. Slow. Careful. Not deer. Deer crash around. This sounded deliberate. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, listening. Then, from somewhere past the tree line, I heard my name. Quiet. Not shouted. Just spoken. The exact way my sister says it when she thinks I'm being stubborn. I don't know how to explain the feeling that hit me. It wasn't just fear. It was wrongness. Deep, instant, total. My whole body reacted before my brain caught up. I backed away from the fence so fast, I nearly slipped in the mud, got inside, locked the door, and checked my phone. No missed call, no voicemail, no one outside. I called my sister immediately anyway, and she answered half asleep, annoyed, definitely in bed at her apartment 40 minutes away. She had not been near my property. She had not called my name. She had no idea why I sounded like that. I didn't tell her. I just said I wanted to make sure she was okay. That night, I did not sleep at all. Around 5 a.m., after too much coffee and way too much staring at security cam footage that showed nothing except rain and static, and one frame that looked like a person by the shed, until I zoomed in and realized it was a post, I made up my mind. I was going to the pickup. Even writing that now makes me feel stupid, but at the time it felt like the only thing in my life moving in a direction. I told myself I was just looking, just seeing if any of it was real. If it turned out to be a scam, fine. If it turned out to be some creepy backyard breeder situation, I'd leave. But if there really was a dog, a strong one, a smart one, something solid and alive to bring back into this house, I grabbed my keys, and I think part of me already knew that once I left the farm that evening, things were never going back to normal. And the worst part is, I still went anyway. The drive out there felt longer than it should have. You know how GPS sometimes says 1 hour 52 minutes, and you're like, okay, that's manageable. That's basically one podcast and a bad decision. Yeah, this was one of those drives where the time just stretched, like every mile marker took longer to show up than the last. I left right before sunset, which was already a mistake. The rain had slowed into that misty, cling to your windshield kind of drizzle, and the roads out past town were almost empty, and I stopped at a gas station about 20 minutes and one of those half-lit places with flickering fluorescent lights and a coffee machine that looks like it hasn't been cleaned since 2008. Grabbed an energy drink I didn't need, checked my phone again. No new messages from the seller, just that same thread sitting there like it was waiting on me. I almost turned around right there. I stood by my truck, rain hitting the hood in soft taps, staring at the black tree line across the road. It all felt off, not dramatic, just wrong enough that your instincts start nudging you. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One text. You're late. I checked the time immediately. I wasn't. Not even close. I was actually ahead by like 15 minutes. I didn't reply. Got back in the truck and kept driving. The coordinates took me off the main road about 40 minutes later, down this narrow, cracked stretch of pavement that didn't show up properly on my maps. No streetlights, no houses, just trees and the occasional rusted sign that looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Eventually, even that road ended. The GPS just stopped updating. The little arrow froze, like it didn't know what to do anymore, but I could see the path. A dirt service road, barely wide enough for one vehicle, cutting through the woods like something had forced its way in and never bothered to clean it up. Mud, deep tire tracks, branches hanging low enough to scrape the roof if you weren't careful. I hesitated, engine idling, wipers dragging slow arcs across the windshield. Then my phone buzzed again. Continue. Lights off when you arrive. That's the moment where a normal person leaves. I know that. You know that. Anyone listening to this right now is probably thinking the same thing, but I turned my headlights on full for a second just to see, and caught something down that road. Not a person, not exactly, just movement, far enough away that I couldn't make it out clearly. Something shifting between the trees, then gone when the light hit it. I shut the headlights off, and I drove in. The darkness out there is different. It's not like the farm, where at least you've got open sky and some light bleed from town. This was thick, the kind that presses in on the windows. My truck's interior lights felt too bright, so I turned those off too, driving with just the faint glow of the dashboard and the occasional flash of my phone screen when I checked the map again, even though it wasn't updating. Every branch scraping the sides sounded louder than it should have. Every dip in the road made my stomach tighten. Then, finally, I saw it. A clearing, not big, maybe the size of a small parking lot. Mud, standing water, surrounded by trees so dense they almost formed a wall around it. And in the middle, a single light, not a building, not a house, just a hanging bulb, like someone had rigged it up from a wire strung between two poles. It swayed slightly in the wind, casting this weak yellow circle over the ground. And inside that circle was a cage. I parked at the edge of the clearing and killed the engine. For a second, there was nothing. No insects, no wind through leaves, just that faint electric hum from the light. Then my phone buzzed again. Do not approach immediately. Wait. I stayed in the truck. I don't know how long. Felt like 10 minutes, probably less. My eyes kept adjusting, trying to see past the edge of that light into the trees. Every time I thought I saw something move, it would disappear if I focused on it directly. Then the driver's side door handle clicked. Not opening, just clicking, like someone tested it. I froze, slowly turned my head toward the window. Nothing there, but I could hear it, movement, right outside, close enough that if I reached out, I'd probably touch whatever it was. Another text came through. Stay inside. I didn't move. The sound circled the truck. Slow footsteps in the mud. Not heavy, not light either. Controlled, intentional. Like whoever or whatever was out there knew exactly how loud it wanted to be. Then it stopped at the front of the truck, right in front of the hood. And for a second, just a second, I saw a shape. Tall, too thin, standing just outside the reach of the hanging light. I couldn't see a face, just the outline of shoulders, and something off about the way the head sat on them, tilted slightly too far to one side. Then it stepped back, into the dark, and my phone buzzed again. You can exit now. I didn't want to. Every part of my brain was screaming at me to turn the key, slam it into reverse, and get the hell out of there. But I didn't, because in that moment, something else cut through the fear. A sound from the cage. A low, steady breathing. Deep, controlled, alive. I opened the door. The air outside was colder than it should have been. Not just temperature. Something about it felt stale, like it hadn't moved in a while. My boots sank slightly into the mud as I stepped into the light. And that's when I saw him clearly for the first time. German Shepherd, big, bigger than any I'd seen in person. Thick fur, dark sable coloring, muscles tight under the coat, like he was built for speed and impact. He wasn't pacing, wasn't barking, just sitting there inside the cage, watching me. Eyes locked, not glowing, not anything supernatural like that, just aware, too aware. There was no tag, no collar, no water bowl, nothing in the cage except him. I glanced around the clearing. "Hello," I called out. My voice sounded wrong out there, like it didn't belong. No answer, just the hum of the light. Then my phone buzzed again. I looked down, opened the cage, stepped back. Do not speak to him yet. I swallowed, walked closer. Up close, he didn't flinch, didn't growl, didn't even shift his weight. Just followed me with his eyes unblinking. The latch on the cage was simple, too simple for something like this. My hands were shaking a little as I reached for it. The second the metal clicked open, the dog moved, not aggressively, just stood up, slow, smooth, controlled. I stepped back like the message said. He pushed the door open with his nose and stepped out into the light. For a second, we just stood there. Me. Him. The rain starting to pick up again, and he tapping softly against the mud and metal. Then he walked toward me. No hesitation, no testing boundaries. Just walked straight up and stopped about a foot away, close enough that I could see the detail in his eyes. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't looking at me like a dog looks at a person. He was looking at me like he already knew me. My phone buzzed one last time. I didn't want to look, but I did. He's already bonded. Take him home. Do not look back while leaving. I glanced up immediately after reading that. The trees around the clearing, they didn't feel empty anymore. I don't know how to explain it better than that. It felt like we were being watched, not by one thing, by multiple. And whatever I had just let out of that cage was the only reason they weren't stepping into the light. The dog turned his head slightly towards the woods, ears twitching once. Then he looked back at me, waiting. I didn't argue, didn't question it. I just nodded, like an idiot, and slowly walked back to the truck. He followed right behind me. No leash, no command, just chose to. I opened the back door. He jumped in without being told. I got in the driver's seat, hands tighter on the wheel than I realized, heart still pounding. And I didn't look back, not when I started the engine, not when I turned the truck around, not even when, just for a split second, I heard something hit the side of the truck from the direction of the trees. I just drove. And the entire way home, I had this feeling sitting in my chest that I hadn't bought a dog. I had brought something into my life that was already in the middle of something else. The drive back felt shorter, not because it actually was, but because I didn't check the time once. I didn't play music, didn't open any apps, didn't even look at my phone except to keep the map barely visible. The whole truck was quiet, except for the engine and the occasional slosh of water under the tires. And the dog. He didn't move around in the back like most dogs do. No shifting, no sniffing, no restless pacing. Just still. I could feel him back there without turning around. And the kind of awareness you get when someone's sitting behind you in a room, even if they're not making a sound. About halfway home, I finally glanced in the rearview mirror. He was already looking at me, not in that excited, curious way dogs do in cars, not panting, not tilting his head, just watching, eyes steady, calm, like he'd been doing it the entire time. I looked away first. By the time I pulled onto my road, the rain had picked up again, not heavy, just constant. The kind that turns your headlights into a blur and makes everything look like it's slightly underwater. The farm came into view slowly. Fence line first, then the barn, then the house, sitting there with one porch light on, like always. It should have felt like relief. It didn't. I parked near the side of the house and just sat there for a second, engine idling. My hands were still tight on the wheel. "All right," I muttered, mostly to myself. "You're home." The word felt weird coming out. I turned the engine off. The silence hit immediately. No crickets, no wind, just rain. I opened the door, stepped out, and walked around to the back. The second I opened it, the dog jumped down. Again, no hesitation. No waiting for a command. Just knew. He landed in the mud without a sound and immediately lifted his head, scanning the property. Not like a normal dog taking in new smells. This was different, deliberate. His ears twitched once toward the barn, then toward the tree line behind the house, then toward the fence, like he was checking something off in his head. I stood there watching him, suddenly unsure of what I was supposed to do next. Inside?" I said, feeling stupid the second I said it. He didn't even look at me. Instead, he started walking, not towards the house, toward the back of the property, straight toward the woods. "Hey," I called, instinct kicking in. No, 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 not out there. He stopped, just froze mid-step, slowly turned his head back toward me. That look again, not confused, not disobedient, just evaluating. Then, after a second, he turned fully and walked back toward me, like he'd made a decision. I don't know why, but that unsettled me more than if he'd just ignored me. I led him inside. The house felt smaller with him in it. I know that sounds weird, but it's the only way I can describe it. Like the walls were a little closer, the air a little heavier. He walked in, paws quiet against the floor, and immediately started moving through the rooms. Kitchen, living room, hallway. He didn't sniff anything, didn't get distracted. He was mapping it. That's what it felt like. Mapping. When he reached the mudroom, the spot where my old dog used to sleep, he stopped. Just stood there, looking at the empty space. I felt something tighten in my chest. Yeah, I said quietly. That's where he used to. The dog turned his head slightly, not toward me, toward the door leading outside. His body went still, not tense, just ready. I followed his gaze. Nothing there. Just rain hitting the glass. I waited. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. After about 30 seconds, I forced a laugh under my breath. Okay, cool. This is already weird. I grabbed an old blanket from the couch and tossed it down in the mudroom. You can stay there for tonight, I said. This time, he looked at me. Actually looked. And for a second, I had this strange feeling like he was listening to the meaning, not the words. Then he stepped onto the blanket and lay down. No circling, no adjusting. Just down, like he was exactly where he intended to be. I locked up the house, checked the doors twice, then went to my room. I didn't sleep. Not really. I laid there scrolling through my phone, opening apps, closing them, rereading the message thread with the seller, like it might suddenly explain everything. My group chat had blown up with random stuff memes. Someone complaining about gas prices, another guy asking if anyone wanted to hit a bar in town. I almost replied, almost told them I just brought home a dog from some sketchy clearing in the middle of nowhere. I didn't. Around 2:30 a.m., I finally put my phone down and just listened. Rain, house settling, and then a low sound from the mudroom. Not a growl, not exactly. More like a warning breath. Deep, controlled. I sat up immediately, listened. It came again, then stopped. I got out of bed and walked down the hallway, every step feeling louder than it should have. When I reached the mudroom, I didn't turn the light on right away. I just stood there in the dark, and I could feel it again. That same feeling from the clearing, like something outside was present. I flipped the light. The dog was already standing, facing the door, body completely still, eyes locked on the glass. I moved closer, slowly. Hey, I said, quieter this time. He didn't react. I followed his line of sight. At first, I didn't see anything, just my reflection, faint in the glass. Then the porch light flickered, just once, and in that split second, there was something on the other side of the yard, near the fence, tall, wrong, gone as soon as the light steadied again. My stomach dropped. Did you? I started, then stopped myself. The dog finally moved, one step forward, then another, until he was right up against the door, not barking, not scratching, just waiting. And I realized something that made my skin go cold. He wasn't reacting like something had just shown up. He was reacting like something had been there for a while, and he'd been waiting for it to come closer. I don't know how long we stood there like that. Me barely breathing, him completely still. Then slowly, he turned his head toward me, and for the first time since I'd brought him home, his expression changed. Not aggressive, not scared, focused, like he was about to do something, and whatever it was, it had nothing to do with being a normal dog. Something changed after that night. Not all at once, not in some obvious, dramatic way where I could point to one thing and say, that's when everything went wrong. It was quieter than that, subtle enough that if I'd been sleeping normalo, if I'd had people around more, if I wasn't already on edge, I might have missed it, but I didn't. The next morning, I found him exactly where I'd left him. Mudroom. Same position. Same stillness. He wasn't asleep. That's the first thing I noticed. He was lying down, sure, but his eyes were open, not wide, not alarmed. Just open, aware, watching the door. Did you even sleep? I asked, my voice rough from barely getting any rest myself. Nothing. He didn't react to my voice right away. Not like a normal dog would. No tail wag, no shifting, no little excited movements. It took a second. Then his ears twitched. Then he looked at me, like I'd just entered his awareness, not like I'd been standing there the whole time. That same feeling hit me again, like I wasn't his owner, like I was something he was assigned to. I shook it off. All right, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. Food, water, normal stuff. I filled a bowl, set it down. He didn't rush it, didn't even move towards it right away. He looked at the bowl, then at me, then back at the door. Only after that did he stand up and eat. Slow, measured, no mess. It shouldn't have been weird, but it was. Everything about him felt intentional. I spent most of that day trying to force things back into something normal. I had work to catch up on, emails piling up, a missed call from my boss I kept ignoring. I made coffee I didn't finish, opened my laptop, closed it, opened Reddit, scrolled without reading anything. My group chat kept buzzing. Someone sent a video from a bar in town, loud music, people yelling over each other. It felt like a different world. Meanwhile, inside the house, it was just me and him, and silence. Around noon, I decided to test something. Come, I said, standing in the living room. He came immediately. No hesitation, no confusion, just moved. Sit. He sat. Stay. Didn't even blink. I walked out of the room, waited maybe 10 seconds, came back, same position. Perfect. Okay, I said slowly. That's good. That's really good. But even as I said it, I felt off, because it wasn't like training a dog. It felt like confirming something that already existed, like he already knew everything. I was just catching up. Later that afternoon, I grabbed his leash, one of my old dogs, and clipped it on. He didn't resist, didn't react at all actually, just stood there while I attached it. Let's walk the property, I said. That part felt normal enough. Routine, something I used to do every day. We stepped outside. The sky was still gray, clouds hanging low, the ground damp but not fully soaked anymore. The air had that cold, clean smell after rain, but underneath it, there was something else. Something faint, rotting leaves maybe, or something worse that I couldn't quite place. We walked past the barn first. Everything looked fine. No broken latches, no disturbed hay. Animals were calm. Too calm, actually. Usually they'd make noise when I walked by, shift around, react. This time, they watched. All of them. Goats, chickens, even the old mule in the back pen. Just watched us. Or more specifically, watched him. Okay, I muttered under my breath. We kept going, toward the back of the property, toward the woods, and that's when he started pulling. Not hard, not out of control, just insistently, like he knew exactly where he wanted to go. "No," I said, tightening my grip on the leash. "We're not doing that today." He stopped, immediately, looked back at me. Again, that look. Not disobedient, not frustrated, just reconsidering. Then he stepped back, aligning himself with me, like nothing had happened. We stood there for a second, the tree line just ahead. Dark, dense, quiet, too quiet. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, maybe. Or that stupid part of my brain that kept whispering, "You already came this far." "All right," I said under my breath. "Just a little." We stepped closer. One step past where I usually stop, then another, and that's when I saw it. Tracks, in the mud. Not fresh, but not old either. Long. Too long. The stride between them didn't make sense. Too spaced out for a normal person walking. Too narrow for an animal like a deer. And the shape? They looked almost like footprints, but stretched, like whatever made them had feet that were almost human. Just wrong. I felt the leash go tight, not pulling forward this time. Holding. I looked down. The dog wasn't trying to go into the woods anymore. He was bracing, body angled slightly in front of me, between me and the trees. That's when I heard it. A voice, soft, from inside the woods. "Hey!" I froze, every muscle locked. It was close. Too close. "You there?" It sounded familiar. I can't explain how, but it did. Like hearing someone you know through a wall, distorted, but recognizable. My grip on the leash tightened. "Who's there?" I called out, instantly regretting it. Silence. Then a shift. Movement between the trees. Slow. Careful. And then I saw it. At first, I thought it was a person, standing just past the first line of trees, half hidden, watching, but something about the way it stood, the way its arms hung, too long, too loose, and its head tilted too far, like the thing I'd seen at the clearing. My chest tightened. "Hey!" I shouted louder this time. "If you're messing around, this isn't..." It moved, not toward me. Sideways, gliding almost, still half hidden behind trees, and then it spoke again, this time in my voice. "Hey!" My blood went cold. I didn't even realize I'd stepped back until my heel hit uneven ground. The dog reacted instantly. No warning growl, no hesitation, just movement, fast, violent, explosive. The leash snapped tight in my hand as he lunged forward, dragging me a step before I lost my grip completely. "Hey!" Too late. He was already gone, into the trees. What followed? I don't even know how to describe it properly. It wasn't a normal animal fight. There was no barking, no yelping, just impacts, heavy, fast, wet sounds mixed with something thrashing violently through branches and mud. And over it, that voice, not mine anymore, not human, twisting, layered, like multiple sounds trying to come out at once. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it felt like I might pass out. "Stop!" I shouted, even though I didn't know what I was yelling at anymore. Then, silence, just like that. Everything stopped. No movement, no sound, just the forest, still, dead still. I stood there, barely breathing. Seconds passed, then a minute, then he came back, walking out of the trees like nothing had happened. No rush, no panic, just returned. His fur was dirty, damp, but not torn up, not injured, not even breathing hard. He walked straight up to me and stopped, looked up, calm, like he'd just done exactly what he was supposed to do. I stared at him, then at the woods, then back at him. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. But the way he stood there, the way the forest behind him felt suddenly empty, told me something I didn't want to accept. Whatever had been in those trees was gone. And my dog was the reason why. I didn't go back into the woods after that. Not that day. Not the next. I told myself I didn't need to. Whatever that thing was, it was handled. Gone. That's what my brain kept repeating. Like if I said it enough times, it would settle into something believable. But the farm didn't feel safer. It felt quieter. And that was worse. That night, I kept all the lights on. Every single one. Kitchen, living room, hallway, even the porch light, and the one by the barn. My electricity bill was probably screaming, but I didn't care. Darkness felt different now. Not just empty, occupied. The dog stayed near the mudroom again. Same spot, same stillness, but something about him had shifted. Before, he watched the doors. Now, he listened. His head would tilt slightly at random moments, ears twitching toward sounds I couldn't hear. Sometimes toward the woods, sometimes toward the barn. Once, toward the ceiling. Yeah, that didn't sit right with me either. I tried to distract myself. Ordered food from a place in town, some burger joint that barely delivers out this far, if you tip enough. The driver called me twice, saying he couldn't find the driveway, even though it's literally just a straight gravel path off the main road. When he finally showed up, he didn't even get out right away, just sat there in his car, engine running, looking at the house. I walked out halfway to meet him, rain misting again, hoodie pulled up. "You good?" I asked. He rolled the window down slowly. "Yeah, this place just..." He trailed off, glancing past me toward the back of the property. "You got animals or something?" "Farm," I said. "So, yeah." He nodded, but it didn't look like that answered his question. As he handed me the bag, he hesitated, then said, "You got someone else out here with you?" That hit me immediately. "No," I said. "Why?" He frowned, leaning slightly to look past me again. "I thought I saw someone standing by your house when I pulled up." My grip on the bag tightened. "Where?" He pointed. "Back there, near that side door. Mudroom." I turned. Nothing there. Just the door. Closed. Light on. When I looked back at him, he already had that expression people get when they think they've said something they shouldn't have. "Probably nothing," he muttered quickly. "Rain messes with visibility." "Yeah," I said. "Probably." He left faster than he needed to. I stood there for a second longer than I should have, staring at that door, before heading back inside. The dog was exactly where he'd been, lying down, facing the door, but now his eyes were locked on me, like he already knew what I'd just been told. I didn't eat much. Food tasted like nothing. My phone kept buzzing group chat, random notifications, a missed call from my sister again. I almost answered this time. Almost. Instead, I sat there, scrolling mindlessly, the TV on some late-night show I wasn't watching, while the dog stayed perfectly still in my peripheral vision. Around midnight, the rain picked up again, heavier this time, louder, the kind that fills the whole house with that steady, drowning sound. And underneath it, a knock, not loud, not aggressive, just tap, tap, tap from the mudroom door. Every part of me went rigid. Slowly, I turned my head. The dog was already standing, close to the door now, body angled, waiting. The knock came again. Same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. I swallowed. "Who is it?" I called out, immediately hating how small my voice sounded. No answer. Just rain. Then, a voice, soft, right on the other side of the door. "Hey!" My stomach dropped. It was her. My sister. Or at least, it sounded exactly like her. "Can you open up?" The voice said, gentle, familiar. "My phone died. I've been calling you." I didn't move, didn't even breathe, because I knew she wasn't here. My eyes shifted slowly to the dog. He didn't react to the voice, at all. No recognition, no excitement, nothing. He just stared at the door, completely still. That told me everything I needed to know. The voice came again, a little more insistent now. "Come on, it's cold out here." Then, a pause. And when it spoke again, the tone changed, slightly off, like something trying to correct itself mid-sentence. "Open the door." Not a request, a command. Flat. Wrong. I took a step back. My heart was pounding so hard, it felt like my vision was pulsing with it. "Go away," I said, barely above a whisper. Silence. For a second, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe it would just leave. Then, the handle moved, slowly, not rattling, not forced, just turning. Like someone on the other side knew exactly how much pressure to use. I stumbled back another step. "Stop!" The dog moved. Fast, not toward the door, between me and it, planting himself there. And for the first time since I'd brought him home, he growled, low, deep, not loud, but it filled the room. The handle stopped moving. The voice came again. But now, it wasn't my sister. It wasn't even close. It was layered, like before. Multiple tones stacked over each other, trying to form words. "You let it in." My blood went cold. "You let it in," it repeated. The dog's growl deepened, and then a sound against the door, not knocking, not scratching, more like something pressing against it, slowly, dragging, testing. The wood creaked slightly under the pressure. I backed up into the hallway, not even realizing I was moving. The dog didn't retreat, didn't break position. He just stood there, guarding, waiting. The pressure on the door increased, then stopped, completely. The rain was the only sound again. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Me halfway down the hall, him at the door, neither of us moving. Then finally, he relaxed, just slightly, the tension in his body easing, the growl fading. He didn't look back at me, just stayed there, watching, listening. And that's when it hit me, that thing outside. It wasn't trying to get in anymore. It had already learned something important, and somehow that made it more dangerous. And he didn't sleep at all that night. And sometime around 3 a.m., while the rain kept falling and my phone lit up again with another missed call I didn't answer, I realized something worse than anything that had happened so far. The dog hadn't just protected me. He had exposed me. And whatever was out there now knew exactly where to come back to. I think the worst part about all of this isn't what I saw, it's what I didn't. Because after that night, after the knocking, the voice, the door handle, moving like someone who knew exactly how to get in, everything just stopped. No more voices, no more figures at the tree line, no more footsteps in the mud, nothing. And that silence, it wasn't relief. It felt like waiting. The next few days blurred together in that weird, sleepless haze where time doesn't feel real. I'd make coffee, forget to drink it, open my phone, scroll for 10 minutes, realize I hadn't actually read anything. My group chat kept going like normal people, arguing about dumb stuff, sending videos, talking about meeting up, but I stopped replying completely. My sister called again, and again, and again. I never picked up. I don't even have a good reason for that. I just couldn't deal with normal conversations anymore. Not when I was constantly listening for something that might be standing just outside the walls. The dog stayed close, closer than before. He didn't patrol the house as much now. Didn't check every room. He stayed near me, always within a few feet. If I moved, he moved. If I stopped, he stopped. If I sat down, he positioned himself where he could see both me and the nearest exit, like he knew something I didn't, or like he was waiting for something to come back. By the third night, I noticed something else. He wasn't eating as much, still drinking water, still alert. But food, he'd take a few bites, then stop, like it wasn't important, or like he didn't need it. That thought sat in my head longer than I wanted it to. On the fourth day, he disappeared. No noise, no warning. I woke up late, maybe noon, I don't even remember, and the house felt wrong immediately. Empty, not in the same way as before. Worse, I checked the mudroom. Blanket still there, door still locked. No sign of forced entry, no broken windows, nothing. He was just gone. I went outside, walked the property, called for him like an idiot, even though I knew he wasn't going to come running like a normal dog. No tracks, no disturbed ground, nothing near the fence, nothing by the barn, and the woods felt closed. That's the only word I have for it. Like whatever had been watching before wasn't there anymore, or didn't need to be. Day one without him, I told myself he'd come back. Day two, I started checking the cameras again, replaying footage, scrubbing through hours of nothing. Day three, I stopped sleeping completely. That feeling came back, the one from before I got him. Like something was off, like something was just outside the edge of everything. Only now, I didn't have him there to stand between me and it. On the fourth night, that's when it happened. I was sitting in the living room, lights on, TV running some random late-night show I wasn't watching, phone in my hand, screen glowing, battery at like 9%. Rain again. Of course, it was raining. It always is when something goes wrong. I remember scrolling through old pictures, photos of my old dog, videos, that hollow feeling creeping back in, heavier this time. And then, a sound from the barn. Not loud, but sharp enough to cut through everything. A metal clang, like something hitting one of the gates. I froze. Listened. Nothing. Then, a scream. High, sharp, human. A girl. From inside the barn. Every instinct in my body fired at once. I was already moving before I even thought about it. Phone in hand. No shoes. Just ran. Out the door. Into the rain. Across the mud. A heart slamming against my ribs so hard it felt like I might black out. "Hey!" I shouted. "Hello?" No response. Just the barn door, slightly open, moving just a little with the wind. That shouldn't have been possible. I always lock it. Always. I slowed down as I got closer. Every step felt heavier, like something in me was trying to pull me back. But that scream, it sounded real, terrified. I reached the door, pushed it open. "Hello? Are you?" And then I stopped, because standing in the middle of the barn was him, the dog, completely still, facing away from me, back toward the far wall. For a second, relief hit me so hard it almost knocked the air out of my chest. "Where the hell have you been?" I said, breathless, stepping inside. "I've been looking for..." He turned, slowly, and that's when everything in me dropped. His eyes were red, not glowing like a movie, not bright, Just wrong, deep, dark, red, and fixed directly on me. The air in the barn felt thick, heavy, like it was harder to breathe. I took a step back without meaning to. What the hell? He didn't move, didn't come toward me, didn't make a sound, just stood there, watching. Then, from behind me, the scream again, louder, right outside the barn now. Help me! I spun around instantly. Empty. Nothing there. Just rain, just darkness. I turned back. Too fast. Heart in my throat. And the dog was closer. I didn't see him move. He just was. A few feet nearer than before. Still staring. Still silent. That's when I realized something. The scream. It wasn't coming from outside. It wasn't coming from inside either. It was everywhere. Like it didn't belong to a place. Like it was being played, or copied, or practiced. My chest tightened. That wasn't you, I said, barely able to get the words out. The dog tilted his head, just slightly, that same unnatural angle I'd seen before. And for a split second, his mouth opened, not in a pant, not in a growl, just opened, and from somewhere deep, layered under his breathing, I heard it, my voice, soft, wrong. You let it in. I stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet floor. No, I said immediately. No, I didn't, but the words felt weak the second they left my mouth. Because I did, didn't I? I brought him here. I opened that cage. I followed every instruction, didn't look back, didn't question it. The dog took one slow step forward, and I swear, for just a second, it didn't look like a dog anymore. The shape was still there, but something about it didn't line up right, like I was looking at it from the wrong angle, or like it wasn't fully one thing. The scream came again, right next to me, so loud I flinched, and then silence, just rain, just the barn, just him, standing there, watching, waiting. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Seconds, minutes. It didn't feel real, nothing about it did. Then slowly, he blinked. And just like that, it was gone. The red in his eyes faded. His posture shifted, back to normal, or at least something close to it. He looked at me the way he had before, calm, aware, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just... I swallowed hard. What are you? I whispered. He didn't answer. Of course he didn't. He just stood there, between me and the open dark outside the barn. And that's the part I can't get out of my head. Even now, even writing this, because I don't know anymore if he came back to protect me, or if he disappeared for those 3 days, to learn how to sound like everything else. One story leaves a message outside the house after the truth gets uncovered. The other leaves a dog standing in a barn with red eyes and your own voice coming out of its mouth. If that dog came back after 3 missing days and still stood between you and the woods, would you trust it?